everybody, and welcome to another 80s golden age of comedy. I am your host, Bruce Starr, and I want to thank you for joining me. Where we've done over 50 shows now, and it's very exciting to be able to learn from people not only who I knew, not only stand-up comedians, not only from the celebrities I knew and worked for and represented, but from time to time, and thanks to my publicist, Stephen Joyner, he introduces me to people that were very much inside the comedy world and in some incredible ways that you're going to learn about today. Because my guest, Scott Schwartz, had no other, I'm going to say incredible again, an incredible beginning to a very interesting career in the movies. And when I tell you, if you don't know the name Scott Schwartz, if I tell you the movie that he was in that I saw it, I know everybody around me saw it, it was The Toy, with two of the biggest stars of our time. There was Jackie Gleason, who, anybody growing up watching the Honeymooners would absolutely, he was a fan favorite, and another huge, not just fan favorite, but a comedian's favorite. Every time I do a show, a stand-up comedian will always say, "Oh man, Richard Pryor, he was the best. I tried to do what Richard did." And so that movie, it was Scott, Richard Pryor, and Jackie Gleason. And I've got to tell you, Scott, you were my favorite in that movie. I saw it again the other day. Not to put anybody down who else was in it. I thought Jackie was very understated in his role, and maybe you can talk about that. I didn't think that Richard Pryor was the best. It was kind of even tough for me to understand him at times. But the person that stood out to me and who literally stole the show was my guest here. Welcome, Scott Schwartz, to the show.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you. Welcome.
So tell me about, let's start at where were you born? I know you're an East Coaster. Where were you born, and did your family have anything to do, either in a good way or a bad way sometimes, of getting you into show business?
I was actually born in California, in Sacramento, and I was still in diapers when my parents moved back east to New Jersey. My dad was buying a window cleaning business, window cleaning, floor waxing, maintenance business. So I was, still in diapers. But I started show business, years later. I was, about 8 when I started. 8.5, and just happened sort of, by accident. I was going to a film club where they watched old movies with my dad, and I was the only kid there. And one of the guys, after several years of knowing me, asked me if I wanted to do a TV commercial. He's like, "You're very outgoing, you're very fun, you have a good look. I think you'd do well doing this." Okay. And ended up doing it. It was a Yoo-Hoo chocolate drink commercial in Miami Beach for a couple of days with Yogi Berra from the New York Yankees.
Whoa!
So as a youngster who was a Yankee fan, I was all in right away just because of that. Wow. And little did I know that what it would lead to.
So here you are in Miami, and what was your experience with Yogi? Because not too many people, he was a ball player first and last, and if you weren't a ball player, I don't know how much time you were going to get a chance to spend with Yogi. What was that experience for you?
He was nice. I was a little kid, so, hanging out on the set, because, there was no dialogue at all. It was swimming in a pool and playing on a volleyball thing and grabbing the Yoo-Hoo out of the ice chest. That was my responsibilities there. So when they were shooting with Yogi, because my friend was the producer, I literally sat below the camera when they were shooting Yogi, and he was fun. He was just a very nice man.
And I got to tell you, after seeing the toy, you were one gorgeous kid. I could understand how you were getting the attention of professional people in the business. And listen, I was a manager for young talent in the 80s also. It's one thing to be gorgeous and have a good look, but it's another thing if you could be outgoing and if you could memorize a line and if you could be an actor. So, what was the next step for you?
Well, let me kind of just fill it in there. I had a lot of benefits going for me beside being very cute. I was very small. Oh, I did off Broadway in seven, and the role was for an 11-year-old. They told everybody that I was 8 and I was playing 6. I was 11, I should say. The role was a 6-year-old, so I was 11. They told everybody I was 8. I was playing 6, so I was always smaller. But growing up with adults all the time, from going to the film club and then getting into show business, my mouth was not that of a 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old. I turned into an adult at a pretty early age from a working maturity level and a psychological, maturity level. So it gave me a monstrous benefit, at that young age to get a lot of work because memorizing lines was very easy. I did plays in school and stuff like that, even before show business. So it came natural to me and ended up being, a huge benefit.
And your father played an interesting role in your show business, not just experience, but background.
Well, he brings me to the movie club, and that's how I ended up in show business. Owning his own business, he had the time that he could take off at 1:15, pick me up at school at 1:30. I could be in Manhattan by 2:30 for auditions and do all of those things. So that was a benefit of scheduling. And then actually for a while we had a friend of the family, and one of the guys from the film club who was an author. His name is Ed Hulse. He's done many books on pinup stuff and other, different stars throughout the decades. He actually drove me for a while. He was a writer, so he had a lot of downtime. So things work the way they're supposed to work.
So what was the first big break that you got after that commercial?
As soon as I got the agent, coming back on the flight from Miami Beach, and I did the first commercial. The guy said, "Listen, you're great. You got to meet a casting director friend of mine. You should keep doing this." Met with her. She introduced us to 2 agents, and I started going and I started booking jobs. We got the 3rd audition, the 5th audition, the 8th audition, the 10th audition, and it just started to roll. Big break wise, I really don't consider doing off Broadway as a big break, for show business purposes. Doing Broadway, I did at the time the biggest non-musical flop in the history of Broadway. I did Frankenstein at the Palace Theater.
Oh God.
Which was, a phenomenal cast. The sets were 50-foot high. They hired a guy named Bran Ferrin who did the special effects for Altered States, the movie with William Hurt, and he wired the whole theater. So when the lightning struck, every seat in the house shook.
Wow.
But Frankenstein was never a Critics' Choice Award in anything. They hated it. And it went back to the original book where the monster talked. And they really hated that. So here we go. We've got, this just monstrous show. And the advanced sales were maybe the worst commercial in the history of anything. I'm not even talking just Broadway. Basically, you heard a big organ, and then a hand came from the top of the screen and a lightning bolt, and it said Frankenstein live at the Palace. That was the whole commercial. So we had no advance sales, or not much in the way of advance sales. They had some, whatever. Terry Allen Kramer and Joseph Papp were the producers, and they were making a fortune doing Sugar Babies, Joseph the Amazing Technicolor Dreamboat, all these other shows. They're making a bloody fortune. So they had a few drinks at the after party, and they tell everybody the show's over. Dr. Frankenstein was played by David Dukes, who was an actor in Neil Simon's Only When I Laugh. Not the KKK guy, different person entirely. The best friend in the show is John Glover. Elizabeth Frankenstein was played by two-time Academy Award winner Diane Wiest. Tom Moore was the director who did Grease, the original Grease on Broadway.
Wow.
I mean, and there were other people. It was just an amazing, terrific show. Needless to say, they canned the show, couldn't get it back going, and that was it. So again, do I consider that a big break into the world of show business? Not really, because we had no length. You know, we had 29 previews and opening night, and we were done.
So how was that going through literally your first disappointment? I know it's easy to celebrate, but how did that lead me through what that felt like to have that crash on you like that?
I mean, it's not my fault. I mean, that's the whole point. You know, it's like I wasn't Dr. Frankenstein, so I'm not carrying the show.
Of course.
You know, I'm the kid. I'm in the second scene, and I'm in the last scene of the first act, and the monster kills me on stage. So it's you're doing all the rehearsals. You get the show. You do your previews, and then opening night, and you're done. Sure, it's a monstrous disappointment. There was no question, because it was fun. You know, for me. The Westchester Theater something, I don't even remember the name that they used, but it was in Westchester, New York. They already knew that the show was closed and showed up at the theater with moving trucks to take all of the set because they were going to throw it out. It was in the back alleyway getting thrown in the garbage. So they took all the sets and they were going to recreate the show and wanted to get some of the cast members, including me. It just didn't work. It was an hour and 40 minutes from where I lived, and they were going to pay a whole whopping $600 a week. You know, so for a 3-hour plus drive back and forth 6 days a week, it didn't make any sense to do it.
So how'd you get your going in the movie business?
It just comes later. You know, you go back to commercials or back to auditions, and you know, it's, whatever it was, Jesus. So it was over a year later, just about a year later. No, a year and a half later when the toy comes around. And it's a cattle call, what we call a cattle call for those who don't know. You show up and it's 300 kids in a room. And then this every day, you know. And then a week later, it's, they wanted you to come back. And then there's only 50 people in the room. And then the third time, there's 4 in the, and this is how this goes, you know. And then I got down to I did what they called the screen test in New York, which was basically, you know, like every other audition. You just stand in front of the camera and you do your lines and okay, thanks, goodbye. Then I got to go out to California to do the real screen test at Burbank Studios.
And that must have been interesting. So tell me about the first days of going on the set and when you first had interactions with Jackie and Richard.
It's before I go. I had booked the film. They fly me out to California to do a wardrobe fitting. And so I got to spend, you know, a day and a half with Richard Donner, you know, and he was very attentive toward me because I'm not the star of the film, but he's not worried about Gleason and Pryor. You know, they're going to handle their own. He wants to make sure, you know, how I'm doing, what's going on with me. And it was fun because we talked about old movies and we talked about old television, and he got to kind of feel me out as far as what my likes were, what my dislikes were, and what I loved, you know, and that's really what leads to, you know, a lot of fun and the toy becoming just a really great experience. I was a monster Gleason fan. I mean, there are people, oh, I love the Honeymooners. Well, that's great, but that's not all that Jackie Gleason ever did. He does the Jackie Gleason show, and all the characters that he did on the show. The Hustler with Paul Newman, I loved, and I loved the one and only Smokey and the Bandit. That was as much as I loved the Hustler, and as much as I loved the Jackie Gleason show and the Honeymooners, Smokey and the Bandit for me was it. I knew every line, every inflection, ever the whole movie back and forth. You could come in anywhere and I'd be there, dialogue wise. So I started doing Gleason to Richard Donner, and he's just cracking up because I knew the whole thing.
Wow.
And he says to me, how did you do this? All right, so number one, I'm a fan. Number two, I probably watched the movie 150 or 200 times. and I used to bike to school and put it on my Sony Walkman on my cassette tape. Everybody else is listening to AC/DC and Zeppelin and whatever, and I'm listening to movies. History of the World Part 1, Airplane, Blazing Saddles, Smokey and the Bandit, and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Those were my movies. So he knew that I would be okay. And still you don't know. Gleason did not like to work with kids and animals. It was very well known. Everybody told everybody, they told me, but I paid no attention to that. It just wasn't in my personality to at least not give it, as they say, the old college try, for goodness sakes. And got down to Louisiana before we're shooting. Normally they do a run through or a read through or something. Well, Gleason wasn't going to do a read through. That was just not going to happen. But we had a meeting in the presidential suite that he always got at the Hilton hotels. And there's like 12 of us at the table. It's my dad, my agent, Gleason, Pryor, Ned Beatty, Teresa Ganzel, Ray Stark, the other producer, Phil Feldman, the other producer. Okay. And it wasn't even hello. We sat down and right away. I mean, Richard Donner knew exactly what to do. He goes, Scotty, get up and go over to Mr. Gleason, do that sheriff thing you do. Okay. And I'm all of 4'6", and I weigh a whole whopping 52 pounds. And I walked over to Gleason. He's still taller than I am, sitting down. And I just looked at him, and you let it go. And I'm like,
come on, give me a little bit. Come on.
Oh, there's no way that you could come from my loins. As soon as we get home, first thing I'm going to do is punch your mama in the mouth. Well, Gleason laughed. Everybody laughed. And he goes, well, okay, so that one, you got anything else? Is that pretty much it? Figuring I just rehearsed one line and that would be it. Well, he opened up Hoover Dam, and here we go, and I just, you're going to whittle your gwee. I got the evidence. Junior, put the evidence in the car. But Daddy, I put the evidence in the car. I'm going to barbecue your ass in molasses. Well,
that was it.
And that was it. He just keep going. And I did like 7 or 8 minutes, and I had them roaring, and it was great. But at that point, Gleason I don't think Gleason saw me as a kid. He saw me as a fan, but as a child actor who wanted to learn from him. I was absorbing, we shot the first day of shooting is a disaster. First day of the shooting, I almost got fired. There's one thing nobody told me. Of all the things that everybody told me, nobody told me one key thing. Jackie Gleason doesn't read the script. He ad-libs everything.
Whoa.
Well, I came from a commercial Broadway background where dialogue is everything. What's on the paper is what you say. Nobody says anything. The scene that we did is at the end of the film. They wanted to get this scene out of the way as fast as possible. In the Rolls Royce, where he's taking me back to the military school, and I'm crying, and it's that emotional scene in the film. So we're in this Rolls Royce, and we're going over this bridge, and he's doing a dialogue, and I'm lost. I'm totally lost because he's not even close to what he's in the script. Nobody tells me what to do. The whole day, back and forth over this bridge. Well, they quit about 4:00, and Phil Feldman takes me back to the hotel and proceeds to call my father and says, he's sitting there on the speakerphone, and he's like, listen, we got a problem. Your kid doesn't know the dialogue. My father's like, are you crazy? He knows everybody's dialogue. What are you talking about? We just shot a whole day is wasted. And my dad thought he was kidding. He's like, no, I'm serious. He's like, well, we'll put him on the phone. So Phil hands me the receiver. He says, what happened? So I tell him what happened. He goes, okay, listen, doesn't matter what they say now. Whatever Gleason says right after it, you just say your line. Doesn't matter. Okay. So then Phil put the phone back and the receiver back on. It's on the speaker. He says, listen, if your kid does this next day of shooting, he's gone. We have to replace him. Now, he's saying this in front of a 13-year-old kid who's never done a film in his life. Just a little bit of pressure. Just a little bit. So I go back to my room, and I'm just losing it. I'm scratching my head. I'm crying. I'm this, I'm that. And about 6:15, Richard Pryor calls me up. Come on over to my room. So I went around the hallway across the field. I go up. We were in a motel, not a hotel, a motel. And he's like, I heard there was a problem today. I said, yeah, this is what happened. And Pryor and I had talked already and met. And so we got along and we're talking and whatever. And he says, okay, stop. What did we just do? I said, well, we're having a conversation. We're chatting. He goes, no, we're ad-libbing. Whatever I say, you react. Whatever you say, I'm going to react. That's the same. Okay. After that, I had no problem. Literally, that was like a one-day glitch because they didn't fill me in on the game. So we do this for about a month. And I'm tippy-toeing, but I'm getting better at what's going on over the course of the weeks as they go by. And now about a month in, now I'm really comfortable. And I could go anywhere on the set I wanted, except one place, Mr. Gleason's trailer. That was it. You go anywhere else. And you must call him Mr. Gleason. It's Mr. Gleason or Great One. That was his nickname, the Great One. So you could say Great One, and he would respond to that. You could say Mr. Gleason, he responds to that. You call him Jackie, you're fired. There was a wardrobe guy that called him Jackie the second day of shooting, and the guy was gone a day later.
Wow.
So Gleason's assistant, his name was Mel, comes over to my door and says, Mr. Gleason would like to see you. Okay. So we were at the big plantation house down in Baton Rouge, and I'm going toward the house. He says, no, he's in his trailer. And I'm like, I'm not supposed to go. It's okay. Mr. Gleason would like to see you. Go ahead in the trailer. So I go in the trailer, and Gleason and I are sitting there. We're going back and forth, chit-chatting. We're talking about stuff, whatever. And of course, I'm very respectful, and I know what you do. It's Mr. Gleason, Mr. Gleason, Mr. Gleason. So we're sitting in the trailer, and finally he goes, listen, you can Mackie, but outside the door, you got to call me Mr. Gleason because that's a respect thing and whatever. But it's okay in here. You want to call me Mr. Gleason? That was fine. That broke kind of that last glass ceiling or whatever you want to call it. It just broke, it broke everything wide open. After that, on the set, I called him Mr. Gleason. I called him Dad. I called him Pop. Didn't care about any of it. Loved all of it because we had the rapport, but just an incredible learning, time for me because I asked questions. I was curious. I was inquisitive. So, I asked Gleason questions and he would answer, and I would ask Richard Pryor anything. Richard was wide open. Richard, he was the best.
Before we go into Richard, because I really want to talk quite a bit about him, if you don't mind, what do people not know about Jackie that you, other than what you've already said? You found out, he's not quite the formal guy that he was made out to be. But tell me about something else that you learned about Jackie that really nobody else would know? And then if you had another story that could explain it, that'd be great.
Gleason was a tough nut. He really was. I mean, I got him. I mean, I get to him at 5 years before he passes. So he's no youngster at that point. He commanded respect. He demanded respect, and he deserved the respect. There was no rehearsing, of course. One maybe 30-second, whatever, and that's been pretty much all you got out of him. Quick kind of sideways thing. I book this was after the film, a Nerf pool, like the Nerf products, the squeezy toys. It was called Nerf pool, and you could put it on a dining room table. And it was a kid, a grandfather, grandmother. The grandfather's being played by Minnesota Fats, and the grandmother's being played by Joyce Randolph, Trixie, the Honeymooners. So I got the Honeymooners and the Hustler. Here we go. It's the three of us. And it just happened that way. And Joyce Randolph found out that I was the kid in the toy with Gleason, walked over to my dad and said, "Is he still the same son of a bitch he was 35 years ago?"
Wow.
He was a tough nut. But if you got through that, then he was a pussycat. I saw him a year before he passed. I went to his home down in Florida. It's a much longer story, but I got to his home in Florida. And he was just elated that the kid came, because that's what he just called me, the kid. The kid's here. Oh, my God. What do you, and he gave me a hug and a kiss, and we talked. There's been so much written about him, said about him. The shenanigans on Smokey and the Bandit with Burt Reynolds. Now, I got a little bit of it from Gleason, and I got more of it from Burt when I met him. And I heard the stories, and it was wild and hilarious.
Now, give me a little bit. Come on.
Well, no, the two of them, just the hijinks that went on the set, because realistically, they're only in two scenes together. The scene at the very, very end and the scene in the restaurant, but they're shooting, and it's like, Burt Reynolds loved Gleason, loved him, and wanted to be around when he was shooting. So everybody knows that Gleason was a heavy drinker. Okay. Everybody knows this. And we're getting toward the end of shooting or whatever. And on our set, Gleason wasn't drinking. He had just had his liver pumped before shooting, for health reasons and all that. So he's drinking iced tea, smoking like a chimney, 5 packs a day. Unfiltered red Pall Malls. Unfiltered, 5 packs a day, all day long. So he tells me this story. He says, "Listen, I want to give you a little bit of advice, kid. Don't drink." I said, "Okay." 14 years old at this point. "Okay, don't drink." Okay. He's like, no, I have to tell you what happened to me. He goes, "I'm doing the Jackie Gleason show in New York, and I lived in Miami, and I don't fly." He hated to fly. So they would limo him from Miami to New York,
Wow.
20 hours.
Wow.
Okay. So he starts telling me the story about one particular trip with his usual driver, and he was just drunk as a skunk. He's telling me, he says, "Scotty," he says, "I drank, a half a bottle of this and a half a bottle of that before I got in the car."
Oh.
So he got all the way to the Washington, D.C. area. He said he's vomiting. He's cursing at the driver. He's screaming at him. He's yelling at him. Finally, the driver had enough. Pulled over on the side of I-95 and says, "Mr. Gleason, you know what? You can drive yourself the rest of the way. I'm done. F you. I quit." And the guy gets out of the car on I-95. And the guy leaves. Gleason says, "I was in the back. I passed out. I got up an hour later. I got in the driver's seat. I pulled the next exit, got a cup of coffee, and drove myself the rest of the way to New York," which is only a 3-hour drive. Okay. Now, I tell my father this, and he says, "Listen, he's just going to tell you a story. It's bullshit, but he's just going to tell you a story." Okay. It's 6 years later. I'm doing an autograph appearance at a video store outside of Baltimore. And then, 10 people, whatever it is, these people come in, come out. Okay, fine. And the guy comes in, and he's probably in his mid-60s, early 70s, somewhere in that range. And he's like, we kind of had a mutual friend. I said, who's that? He goes, Mr. Gleason. I said, really? It was the limo driver. He
Wow.
proceeds to tell me the whole story again.
Wow.
And I'm going, you got to be kidding me. He says, you know what happened? I got out. I had a friend of mine that lived here in the Baltimore area. I called him from a payphone. He came and he got me. He goes, I called my friends in Miami, said, pack up my apartment, send me my stuff. I'm not coming back. He never went back to Miami. He stayed in the Baltimore for all those decades.
Wow.
You know, and we're talking that was late 50s, early 60s, you know, when this happened. And, you know, how many years, 30 years later. So I mean, there's one that you're scratching your head going, really? But there it was. It was a true story.
So one of the things that all the comedians, when they say, hey, you know, I learned from this one, I learned from that one, is watching Abbott and Costello and Laurel and Hardy, and they would go into two guys that they were just the cat's meow, for lack of other words, was Richard Pryor and George Carlin. All the biggest comedians always talk about Richard. And for you to have had such like intimate inside experiences with him is really something. Love to hear all about Richard.
Greatest man I've ever met, ever known, most open guy. You know, again, these are my experiences. You know, there's been a lot of stories of what happened, what went down, you know, the before and the after he burned himself up and all that. But my personality, our love of old film, one of the key things that brings us together, beside the film itself, of course, to work together. He loved an old Western star named Lash LaRue, the master of the bullwhip. And I tell him, you know, we had just gotten down to Louisiana, and we were talking about different things, you know, and he knew already about my film background of knowing, you know, going to the movie club and all this. And he's like, oh, I love this guy. You'll never know who he is, Lash LaRue. I said, I know who he is. My dad's got movies of him at home on VHS. Well, hey, Dad, you got to make copies of Lash LaRue movies for Richard Pryor. Come on, get him down here, you know. So Dad made the copies of the movies, and my dad came down a couple of weeks later and brought this box. And here you go, Richard. Here's Lash LaRue. Well, I mean, that was it.
The toy was after he had this fire kind of blowout kind of thing.
Oh, no. He poured a bottle of Bacardi on his head and lit himself on fire. You know, as the tale goes, which his bodyguard, Rashawn, at the time, his right-hand man, still love the guy. He's still around. God bless him. They were watching something, flipping the channels, and they were showing something about a peace protest that was going on in Tibet or something. And there's a monk, and he's sitting in the middle of a square in the street, and they pour gasoline over him, and the guy lit himself on fire, and he didn't move. And they were talking, Richard and Rashawn, about, you know, now that's commitment. You know you're going to die, but you're going to die for a cause, and you're not going to complain, and you're not going to run, whatever. And Richard left him and went in the bedroom. And, you know, Richard comes out of the bedroom, and he runs right through the living room, right out the front door, and he's lit himself on fire, you know. But yes, the toy was after that. And Richard was not happy with who he was and what happened and things that he did. I mean, we kind of understand it, you know, being a guy that grows up in a whorehouse in Peoria, Illinois, and, you know, had nothing. And now he has everything. You know, you're showing up and it's 200,000, it's 500,000, it's $1 million. You know, those are real dollars. So you can get out of hand pretty fast. And that's what he did. You know, so the cocaine, the crack, the booze, you know, okay. So when he lit himself on fire, he really wanted to get rid of that guy. He really did, you know. And I ended up sort of being the beneficiary of that, because I wanted to learn and he wanted to teach. He wanted to be a better person, So as inquisitive as I was as responsive as he was. Now, with all that being said, this is still Richard Pryor. So there's no filter. The mouth has no filter, which in my case didn't really matter. My parents were never worried about language, the F-bombs and the MF and my parents never really cared about that. Just don't hurt anybody. Make love, not war. There you go. I'm getting an education on everything on the set from Richard. And it's literally everything from drugs, booze, women. He's reading books and underlining and being studious, and his wanting to make a better person and be better informed knowledge-wise of the world. That's what he was about. Now, again, of course, here I am. I'm, turned 14 years old, and he's pointing out every chick on the set to me. Oh, what do you think of her? Oh, what do you think of her? And I mean, and he's saying the things that I don't even know. If there's any kids, you excuse the language. There's probably not going to be whatever, But he's like, oh, I got a blowjob from this one over here. And I'm like, that sounds great. I didn't even know what the man was talking about, because I wasn't there yet. I hadn't hit puberty yet. I didn't hit puberty till I was over 15. So I got no idea half the stuff he's saying, but I'm just agreeing with it. That sounds nice. Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah, And he's like, oh, what do you think of her boobs? Oh, what do you think of her ass? And this is every day on the set. Okay. We shoot the scene in the dining room. It's me. Across from me is Richard. Next to me is Gleason. And on the other side is Teresa Ganzel, who plays Fancy Bates. Okay. And she's got that white open top dress, her boobs are sticking out, whatever. The whole day, they're making boob jokes. I mean, it's hysterical what's going on the whole day. So at one point, Richard and I are sort of chit-chatting, across from each other, and Gleason and Teresa are chit-chatting, whatever. And I guess Teresa had gone for a touch-up of her makeup or whatever. She sat back down, and I'm just talking to Richard. So I'm looking dead straight. He's on my right. And Gleason goes, honey, your left is more than your right. And she's like, huh? Honey, your left is more than your right. So, of course, now I'm hearing it. So I look over, and Teresa's boob had come out of her dress. So I'm looking at the whole thing. And finally, Gleason goes, honey, look down. Your left is more than your right. And she looked, oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. She tucks it in. Well, Richard's sitting across from me, and it's the jokes the whole day. Well, I have that one line at the end of the scene, Fancy, because she's talking about her boob job and the propellers and all this nonsense. And it's, Fancy, what did your boobs look like before? Well, there was no way after 9 hours of them talking about her boobs that I could keep a straight face. It was not going to happen. They shoot me dead straight, close up. Nope, forget it. I'm laughing. I'm cracking up. And Richard's cracking up and all. Can't do it. So they did a over the shoulder kind of, this way, and Pryor's here. And I said it, and I still smirked. You can still see the little smirk on my face, and he spits out the water and kind of covered for me. But I see me, so I know what happened, Those things every day, all day. One of the girls that was in the film, and right before the party scene, she comes out of the limo with Gleason's wife and whatever. Gorgeous, gorgeous woman. Oh, God, was she gorgeous. Richard tells the transportation coordinator to put her trailer, her motorhome, back to back with mine. And, of course, the back of a motorhome, you got a big window, And this is showbiz. This is Hollywood stuff, Nobody, got to make sure and close the blinds. That doesn't happen. So we go to lunch. We finish lunch. I'm in the back of my trailer. She's in the back of her trailer, which is, fate back to back with mine. And I start getting back into my, outfit. She's right behind me, and whoosh, off comes the top. And there's no bra. And it's, oh my God, whatever, It was a beautiful view, to say the least. So after lunch, we'd done some things, whatever. Richard, and I are sitting there. And I said, oh, that girl, oh my God, she's gorgeous. He said, what happened? So I told him, whatever. He goes, oh, she's got a nice rack. I said, oh, Jesus, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. But he doesn't tell me what he did. It's like 2 days later, the transportation coordinator comes over. He says, by the way, you should send Richard's, a hot dog or a hot fudge sundae or something, because he's the one who set that up. That was Richard sending girls to my trailer. I'm pre-puberty. I couldn't do anything, but Richard was sending girls to my trailer, but he never told me until years later, when I came out to California and we were hanging out at his house. And I'd be like, that was so much fun, this, that, the other thing. And, we're flipping through the channels on the TV, and the movie The Last American Virgin came on. And I said, oh, those were fun times back in the movie. And he goes, did you think you were like Stud Muffin or something here, dude? I was sending the girls to your trailer every other day, man. That's my job. I mean, I had the greatest wingman ever, and it lasted until the day he left us, He was just a super guy. There's just, he will be, people call people idols and icons and all that. No, he's my hero. He's my idol. He's my icon, because he treated me with love, care, and respect for decades, from 82 until he passes, 20 something years,
He gave you full access to his place, and just about to the very end.
Oh, yeah, when the MS had set in, and I was still going over his house a couple days a week. I would just go over and just talk to him, and something had come up, his wife, she wanted me to make an appointment to come to the house, and I kind of felt like, why, So I told Richard what she had said, and Richard called the wife in, and he says, hey, in case I can't say this later or something happens or whatever, 24/7, 365, if Scotty shows up at 2:00 in the morning with some chick and wants to go in the jacuzzi, somebody better open up the front door for him. Anytime, he's allowed in this house. Okay. And then we kind of straightened it all out with his wife, but that was the relationship that we had. He took me over. He called me up. It was a 2-0 Wednesday. He calls me up. He says, what are you doing? Nothing. Hey, come on over to the house. And he lives at the time, he lived about 15, 16 minutes from me. So I go over, I go, what's up? Okay, come on. And we jump in the white Rolls Royce, and here he's driving. I'm in the passenger seat. And we go down to Paramount Pictures. We're talking on the way down, but where are we going? Oh, it doesn't matter. You'll find out. Okay, fine. So we get down to Paramount, you pull up to the gate, and they're always, what's your name? Da, da, da. Oh, no. The guy look, oh, Mr. Pryor, how you doing, sir? You go right ahead. No problem. Yeah. So we pull up to the soundstage, and there's the little sign, outside the door, Coming to America. Well, of course, the movie's being made. I don't know what this is, whatever. But Richard knew what I loved. I walk in, and 10 feet in front of me is James Earl Jones. Now Richard knows I'm a Star Wars fanatic, and Darth Vader is my favorite character. And I walked in, I was like, yipe, and they walked over and they embraced, and he's like, this is my boy. This is my little man, Scotty. This is my friend James. Oh, it's nice to meet you. I was like, oh my God,
Wow.
But I mean, he introduces me to, Arsenio, and he introduces me to Eddie Murphy and John Amos, who I love to death, Good Times and Die Hard 2 and all that. So that was Richard. Those are that's one of the things that he did. There are so many things, phone calls. I'd pick up the phone and I'd call him, and I'd be with an athlete or another celebrity or somebody, whoever, or just a friend of mine. But if it was important enough to pick up the phone to call Richard knew, whatever. He'd pick up the phone. Hey, what's going on? Da, da, da. Yeah, I got a friend of mine here. Da, 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 whatever, And he would talk to people. He always had time for me. Never said, hey, kid, I don't have time. I can't do it. Never happened.
Now, a quick word from one of our sponsors. I've been told by a lot of the comedians I knew and represented during the 80s, I looked the same as I did 40 years ago. And come to think of it, I still have my thick brown hair and just a few wrinkles. But most importantly for me, by simply applying the completely safe human growth hormone homeopathic gel on my skin just 2 times a day. The depression and panic attacks I suffered from years ago were gone in just 2 weeks. And then I started deep sleeping for many hours at night. You can have the gel work for you too. To find out more, contact me at bruce@brucestarproductions.com.
The introductions, the opening of doors because of Richard, I meet George Carlin in Atlantic City at one of the hotels he had done a show. Just a little FYI, George Carlin and I shared a birthday. There you go. So I said hello, and I told him who I was and whatever, Richard, and he was, sit down, let's chit chat. And then I said, by the way, and I handed him my driver's license, and he's looking. He goes, okay. I said, no, you got to look at the date of birth. He goes, oh, look at this. Well, no wonder you're so funny.
Yeah.
Robin Williams, Richard opens that door. Mike Tyson. I mean, I could go on. I could name drop all day the things that Richard did for me, And if he didn't, as they say, give a shit, he wouldn't have done any of it. I miss him every day. I truly do. And especially today with what the world is like. Oh, God, I would have loved to have heard what would come out of his mouth.
I really appreciate that. That was really wonderful. I think people are going to learn a side of Richard. I think you're going to surprise a lot of people just because he was a bit caustic and, he had that reputation for the colorful words. And but I had read about a part of him from the improv book that, he was, a regular guy who really wanted to be funny and make people laugh. And I think a lot of that got lost.
Very true, and again, taught me a lot about everything. He was a colorless person. There was no such thing as he was a black comedian. And no, he was just a comedian.
Nobody would know this, but it's wonderful to hear this from your mouth.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm a white Jewish kid from Jersey, and he's from Illinois, and we know his background. How does he sort of take me under his wing? All he's responsible is while I'm shooting a film with him, and that's it. It's the afterwards. A couple months later, he was in London doing Superman 3. And one of the other films that we both loved was Airplane, the jive talking Airplane. And he sent me a telegram. Scotty, I hope you're having a great summer. Love you. See you soon, Richard. P.S. Lay him down and smack him, yak him. And I have that on my Western Union telegram. His thoughtfulness. I mean, I had every phone number, every house that he had. I had all the phone numbers, the production number, the house in Hawaii and house here, whatever. And of course you move. And back then there's no cell phones, it's just house lines and office lines. And he closed his office and did, moved here and sold the house in Maui. And I didn't have a number on him. Then I moved to California. So I went over to the Comedy Store and I went to the Laugh Factory and I said, hey, if Richard Pryor comes in, this is who I am. If somebody could call me, I'd appreciate it. So it wasn't that long afterwards. I get a phone call from the guy at the Comedy Store. It says, hey, Richard just walked in. I said, I'll be right there. So I, got my ass down to the Comedy Store as soon as possible. And he was in the original room in kind of the back corner behind the ticket booth. And the guy says to me, he's right there. All right. So it's dark where he's standing, he's in the back corner. And I just went around him and just stood next to him, waited for the comedian that was on stage to finish. Everybody claps. Okay, fine. And I kind of nudged him. And I said, my God, they'll let anybody in here. And he looked at me and that was it. I did not go home that night. My car sat in the parking lot at the Comedy Store. We left the Comedy Store later that night. We went to Mel's Diner on Sunset, got food, went to his house. Then in the morning, drove me back, not morning, early, it was like 10:30, drove me back to the Comedy Store to get my car. But we talked until 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. I know the stories from other people of what was going on and what he was like and what he did, and the drugs even later on, like, he went back to doing stuff and whatever, and I just didn't see that. I don't know if it was like he liked having me around because then he wouldn't go to that place.
Sounds right.
Maybe that was part of it. I don't know, but the man never did a line of cocaine in front of me. Would he have a drink? Absolutely. But that's okay. Never smoked a bowl in front, nothing, but, about as thoughtful a human being as completely insane possible. It's about, oh God, a year and a half, 2 years after we did the film, he was going to be at Radio City Music Hall in New York. And so I called the office, talked to his assistant, said, hey, listen, I'd love to come to the show. She's like, okay, I'll talk to Richard. I'll get back to you. Okay, fine. She calls me back. Richard said, whatever you want. Okay. So I said, well, I'd like to bring a date. And my mom and dad, is 4 too many? If that is, whatever. No. Richard said, whatever you want. You got it. Okay. So we're sitting about 10th row dead center of the theater. And then, we get there. Richard starts doing his thing, whatever. And he's about 45 minutes in or so, somewhere around there. And he's reading his review from the Post, from the New York Post. And he's cursing everybody out, and it's hysterical, whatever. And he got done reading it, whatever. And he spots me. And he says, hey, you guys seen most of my movies. You seen The Toy? Yeah, they all loved it. Okay, fine. He goes, remember that little motherfucker? Uh-huh. He's sitting right there. So he points me, Scotty, stand up. So I stand up and I get this roaring ovation, and people were standing up. Not everybody, but, unbelievable. To what purpose does he do this? Other than to just give the little kid another minute of feeling great, whatever. I mean, my parents were ecstatic. They were going bananas, whatever. My day was happy too. That was fun,
I bet.
So we go backstage after the show, and we're in a room with 300 people. I mean, it's a monster room, and there's just people there, whatever. And I see Richard's assistant, and I said, hey, are we going to get to, say hi? She's like, oh, I don't know. Hang on a minute. Let me go check. And then, so she comes back. She's okay, come with me. So now we go into the real room. This was kind of like the fun VIP room, and then you get the real VIP room. So Don King is there. 2 of Richard's ex-wives are there, executives or whatever. So we're standing there, and if you can imagine, he comes through the door, and we were right on the right of the door. And he walks out, and he looks around. This is a year and a half after the movie. And he looks at my dad. Danny, how are you? It's good to see you. Gives my dad a hug and a kiss.
Wow.
Sharon, how are you?
Wow.
Love you. Gives my mom a hug and a kiss. Looks at, you get last. Who's your date here? Who's this cute girl here? Oh, get a kiss. Okay. And then me says, come here. And he grabbed me, picks me up, and gave me a big hug. I was still a small guy anyway, So we talked for a while. He goes, listen, unfortunately, I do have to talk to all these people. That's how he said, unfortunately. But you guys hang out. There's food, drinks, soft drinks, whatever. You guys have whatever you want. You stay as long as you want. If anybody tells you to leave, tell them, go fuck yourself. You're with me. That's the end of that. That's how Richard puts it. Okay. And we stayed about an hour or whatever. And he talked to pretty much everybody, and he came over and spent a few more minutes with us, whatever. And he says, we'll see you soon. Okay. And you leave. Little did I know, I come out to California and then reconnect. And then it was, never ending. But that wasn't his responsibility. He did it because he cared.
That's beautiful. That really is.
Going to see him the last year and a half, when he couldn't talk, and, the MS had just debilitated him down to a vegetable, which was just beyond anything that I could have imagined, but I saw it. So, I had one-way conversations, I'm just talking to him, but he could blink, so, the brain is not affected by MS. It's the body, it's the motor skills. So he knew I was there. He knew I was talking to him, and he left us too soon.
I actually have. I did a little bit of celebrity photojournalism, and I actually have a picture of Richard with a cap on. I think it was one of the show business caps on. I'll put it into the video when we're done here. So, and again, wow, I couldn't have asked for more heartfelt information about two of show business's greatest people. And wow, you got to work with both of them and have a life with one of the most beloved comedians in the world. So, whoo,
Yeah.
you must have been a special kid. I congratulate you.
I don't consider myself anything special other than I loved film and I loved television and the history of cinema and the history of television. So these guys knew that. I informed them and they played with me as far as, showbiz stuff. If I didn't go see Gleason, he would have never have contacted me. That just wasn't him. But going to see him was wonderful. Richard was a different duck, man. I mean, he was just
So having worked so many months, and I think I remember you saying 3 or 4 months in Louisiana. One of the tough parts for me is I've seen last days of shooting for shows when they know that's it, show's over, whether it's a sitcom or a movie. Do you remember of the last day of shooting and what it was like for you after that next week after that last day of shooting?
Having done so many jobs by that point, I was used to saying hello and goodbye, hello and I'll see you later. I was used to that. So, I mean, having the rap party in Baton Rouge and knowing that people gave me their phone numbers, the Richard Donner's office. Okay, fine. His assistant, David Price, whose dad was Frank Price, the executive and producer. I still talk to David. We talk all the time. We're on Facebook and whatever, social media. It wasn't a emotional. I mean, you get a little emotion, but I wasn't a wreck, so to speak, But going home, I was on, planet Mars. My head was like this and all that stuff. But it was more from the treatment that I got from the people on the set and how everybody took care of me and whatever. And yet I was the guy that when I came to the set, I got my own bagel, I got my own coffee, I did that stuff, whatever. But I threw a barbecue at our house in New Jersey, and we had a porch in the back and invited all my friends, and my head was like this, And one of my dear friends, who's still one of my dear friends, he's a brother basically at this point. I've known since middle school. My friend Andy, he's like, dude, you're being an asshole. You really are. We're getting kind of tired of it. Because if you're going to keep doing this, we're going to go home.
Right.
And it was one of the most honest things that anybody can say to you. I'm like, what are you talking about? No, dude, you're being an asshole. So that pretty much ended that. As far as the ego kind of okay, And
but how about when the movie came out? What was that like?
Weird time. I literally, the day the toy opened in the theaters, I finished a movie called Kidco for 20th Century Fox the same day. They decided, because of the way that it happened, to have a 2-day rap party, a night and a day rap party. So we finished shooting the film literally at 4:30 in the afternoon on that Friday, December 10th. And they said, okay, everybody has to be outside the hotel 7:00. Do not be late. You will be left behind. They got 4 cargo vans or Dodge, passenger vans, like the cargo vans with passenger seats. And they bought 4 rows of tickets at the theater in Tucson for the opening of the toy, opening night. So I ended up seeing it with my cast and crew from Kidco.
Wow.
You know, so, I mean, it's one thing when you watch it with your family, you know, oh, you watch something. No. This is opening night with a crew and cast of another film completely, and they all wanted to go. So, I mean, that was great. And then the next day we had a big barbecue, whatever. But it was the shows, doing Regis and Kathy Lee. Sounds wonderful, right? Except the day that I'm on the show, Regis and Kathy Lee they're down in Atlantic City. So I got Ira Joe Fisher and some other woman. I had some woman, I couldn't tell you her name, don't ever remember. So I'm sitting in the green room and they hand me the sheet with the whole thing. Now, they didn't tell me it's going to be Ira Joe Fisher and from ABC and this other woman. Whatever. I'm sitting in the green room with my dad and we started laughing. We're like, yeah, we got the right day. We got the right whatever, you know. Okay. And in walks Joe Namath.
Oh.
He's the other guest on the show.
Oh.
Go figure. So I get to sit with Joe Namath for 45 minutes.
Wow.
It's just me, my dad, and Joe Namath. That's it. Where's he going? You know? We had a blast, you know? And, I mean, I've seen Joe several times over the decades, and every time I see him, my boy, how you been doing? What's going on? How you been? You know, just, again, personality, fun, open, laughing, joking. That's just me.
The other thing that people would never get being regular pedestrians is that movie comes out. A lot of people saw it. Tell me about the recognition factor when you were just being you, walking around or being places and getting recognized.
My friend Andy, who was the one that went most places with me, we'd be at a mall, you know, and literally I got to the point where I could hear it 30, 40 feet away. Sounds nutty and crazy, but I could hear that's the guy. I could hear it, you know, and he's like, dude, come on, Rick. I'm telling you, 20 seconds, they're walking over. Don't worry about it, you know. And they'd walk, aren't you the guy? Yeah, you know. But there was no TMZ, you know. There wasn't the craziness of the social media thing. There's no cell phone cameras back then. There's nothing, you know. So it was much easier. There's no doubt. A fun one was my dad and I were in. I had done an audition for something. Who knows what it was? But we were at the Carnegie Deli in Manhattan, and we're sitting there. And Joel Siegel walked in from ABC News, who did the film reviews, whatever. And he had given us, you know, he'd given the film, but he said he liked me. So that was pretty cool. So Joel Siegel walks in, he's at the counter, he orders his pastrami, corned beef pastrami sandwich, whatever. And he turns around, he looks around, he sees me. And Joel Siegel walks over. You're Scott Schwartz. You were in the toy. You were really good, man. I really thought you did a great job. Wow. You know, thank you. Because I grew up watching him. You know, so it kind of meant more than just somebody, okay, whatever. I mean, stuff like that. You know, people did come over, but nothing crazy. It wasn't, you know, I wasn't the Beatles, you know, the Justin Biebers, you know, getting just inundated and people going nuts. No, you know, that's only happened really one time, you know, where the horde of people just surround you. It was a 20th anniversary reunion of A Christmas Story. We did it out here in California. That's what it was. It was a charity event, Toys for Tots Drive. And we expected a couple of hundred people to theater, whatever. Peter, one of the very few times Peter was with us to do events, it's just not his thing. But Bob Clark kind of said, no, you're going. Come on, let's go. Okay, fine.
Peter who now? Peter who? Just
Peter Billingsley, who played Ralphie, the lead kid in The Christmas Story. So we pull up to this theater, and as we're pulling up, we see this massive line of people. I mean, it's an entire city block of people. We don't think it's for us. There's no way, you know, whatever. The movie's already 20 years old or whatever. Well, we get to the front, and The way I explain it, it's like from Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield. Burt Young holds up the sign that says Bruce Springsteen, and the whole people attacked the. That's what it was like when we got out of the limo. The people just went,
20 years later. Wow.
20 years later, and Peter's part claustrophobic. He's like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Just get behind me." So he got behind me, and I'm kind of pushing my way through, coming through hot coffee. It's the only time it ever happened really like that, to be, jumped on. It's always been nice. I mean, I am who I am, but I'm just a kid from Jersey. I get that. Yes, I'm also the guy in the movies and all of that. But it's been nice to been able to go to movies and be on, and go to, I did stuff for the WWF before it was WWE back in the 80s, and nobody had a clue who I was. Once in, here, there, somebody would say, aren't you? Now, all the guys from the company knew who I was, but out and about, it was great. I've always kind of had my anonymity, so I could live a life, and not be, locked into a house. I've known many, many athletes and celebrities, and they got to have movie theaters in their house because they can't go to the movies, and I got to enjoy that part of life like everybody should. The fame is a benefit, but it can be a deterrent. It's more the enjoyment, if you enjoy it. There are people, oh, I love showbiz. Will you work for free? That may not happen, and for certain people that are friends or people that I've known for a long time or whatever, I've worked for pizza because I enjoy what I do and I love what I do. And my mentors, Gleason, 10%, Richard Pryor, 90%. There's my mentor, it taught me how to enjoy the business, how to enjoy, performing in any form or fashion. I'll tell you one more Pryor story and I'll wrap that up.
Please. I'm
working at the Comedy Store as a doorman, and I'm working in the main room. And Richard was coming in, and one of the waitresses comes over and says, "Oh, Richard's in the back," So behind the stage in the Comedy Store is a little green room area. That's what they call the green room, the waiting area, whatever. So I go behind the stage and walk all the way across the hallway, and I walk in the room. And it's Richard Pryor, his wife Jennifer, Sam Kinison, and Robin Williams. The four of them and me. Now, I had met all of them. Sam was at the Comedy Store constantly anyway. He worked there all the time. And Robin had come in a couple times, and I'd met him before, so he knew who I was, whatever. Richard, okay. So now it's time for Richard to go on stage. And if you came out and you went back down the hallway and you made a left, you go to the seating area. If you went out, you made a quick left, that's behind the curtain of the main room stage. Sam walks out, goes to the left. Robin walks out, goes to the left. Richard's wife goes out. She goes all the way down to the end. She's going to the out in the audience. And Richard, I'm holding the door, and Richard looks at me. He says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm working. I got to go back to work." He says, "No, you don't. Yeah, come with me." So he grabs me, and he pulls me through the curtain, the main room at the Comedy Store. So there's two little steps at the back of the stage. Richard and I are sitting there, and it's Robin Williams and Sam Kinison. And they do 25 minutes, 28 minutes. My God. And we're just rolling.
Wow.
All right. Sam turns around, and he hands Richard the mic. So now it's Richard Pryor, Robin Williams, and sitting behind them is Sam Kinison and me. They do another 25, 30 minutes. Robin Williams turns around. Richard's talking to somebody, messing with a customer, whatever. Robin turns around and he hands me the mic. And I looked at him and I said, "And what would you like me to do?" I've done stand up a little bit, but I'm still green compared to these three. This is Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, and Lou Gehrig, and you're bringing in, a very young Barry Bonds, whatever you want to call it.
Phil Linz. I'm just saying. Phil Linz, right? You remember Phil Linz?
There you go. Oh, we could do many. Mookie Wilson, Buckner, whatever. So he hands me the mic, and I go, "What do you want me to do?" And he goes, "That's your boy. Go get him. Go get him." Okay. So I take the mic and I walk up to tell you that you couldn't have put a toothpick in my mouth or my ass, to say the least. I was half scared shitless because I'm on the main room stage of the Comedy Store with Richard, and sitting behind me is Robin Williams, the same kids. Okay. And Richard stops and he turns around, he looks at me and he goes, "Oh, you want some of this?" And I kind of went, "Okay." Well, he starts to tear me a new behind like you've never heard in your life. He's got every Jewish short penis joke you've ever heard. And he's tearing me to shreds. Okay. And I'm just standing there and I'm laughing and the people are crying. I mean, literally, you know. So again, I'm just standing there. And finally, after like 5 or 6 minutes of him tearing into me, he says, "You have nothing to say?" And I said, "Well, if you'd shut the fuck up, maybe I will say something." Well, here we go. Then I start tearing him a new behind. And I mean, he's dying because he's never heard me like this. I'm just letting loose. Nobody's out to hurt anybody. You know, we're not out to insult each other. I'm talking about him banging extras on the set and talking about with this one and with that, whatever. It's hysterical. Then we're just going back and forth, talking about this, that. It was fun, okay? So we probably did close to 20 minutes. And finally, Richard's like, "All right, I'm done. That's good. You guys are good. We're all done. Okay, fine." And Robin and Sam come up and we all took a bow. We come off the stage. And Robin gives me the pat. He said, "Good boy. I knew you'd do it. Good boy." Sam comes over. He goes, "You killed it, dude. You killed it. No question. Beautiful. Beautiful." Richard grabs me, gives me a big hug, kisses me on the cheek, and goes, "Yep, no question. You are the white son I never had." How many people can say that they had that experience? Nobody except me. Now, I've told the story, and people go, "Oh, well, you're full of shit, and you're BS." No. The guy that worked the spotlight at the Comedy Store, his name is Jay. I lost touch with him when I left. You know, he left the Comedy Store. I left the Comedy Store, whatever. Thank God for social media. He found me. And the first thing he writes is, "Scotty, I don't know if you remember me, but I was in the spot at the Comedy Store when you were on stage with Richard and Robin and Sam." And oh my God. So there's my, you know, no, and they had a VHS hooked up, but no blank tapes. I mean, if I had, remember, no cell phone cameras, nothing. Got nothing from that night. Even if he had, you know, said, "Listen, there's 3 seconds. That's all I would need. I need a one frame of that." So it just becomes a memory, you know, because of Richard. You know, that was one of those nights.
That was special.
Oh, insane. What was I doing up there? You know, that was Richard.
3 non-living legends.
Yeah, thanks. I know. I'm the last man standing, as they say. You know. I mean, Sam was nuts. You know. He was fun, but he was nuts.
You never knew what was going to happen or what he was going to say.
Oh no, you had no idea. You know. What night he'd show up after doing 6 or 8 lines of coke? Is he bringing his 38 with him? Is he going to shoot anybody? I mean, that almost happened one night. You know, he had his good, and he had his bad. You know, Robin was always fun. You know, I always enjoyed being in his company. You know, the half a dozen times I was fortunate enough to be around him. You know, and Richard, the best. There's no question. I've got a book that's. You know, but with COVID and everything else has been delayed and all this stuff. But my book is dedicated to Richard. There's no question. There was, oh geez, who am I going to dedicate the book? Am I thinking? There's no question. It was just automatic. That's what it was. You know, in the climate of today's world that we're in, you know, there's not too many people in my position who can say the things that I say. Because if you know anything about me, you can't stand in front of me. "Oh, he's racist." And really, you know, it's like Richard over the course of my lifetime has meant more to me really than anybody else in my lifetime. Parents included, the influence, the knowledge, the things the experiences I had with them. I will tell you, I was doing a film festival and I wanted to come up with something to kind of get people, shake them up, get them alive. Let's go. And I figured out what I wanted to say and I did the bit. And because everybody knows who you are when you go places, like that, a film festival, you have your credits and everybody knows the toy, Richard Pryor. Okay, fine. So I get up there and I said, listen, let's just get the elephant out of the room. Let's just talk about it this week and, get it gone. The movies I'm in and everything with Richard Pryor and all that. So has anybody else in here bought a black man beside me? Well, I can tell that joke. Now, the funny thing is, the white people that I could see, they got whiter. And then the black people that I could see were laughing their asses off, high-fiving each other. When I left, I'm not kidding. Not one white person came up to me to get a photo, an autograph, nothing. But every black person there wanted to talk to me, wanted to take a picture and get an autograph. They got the joke. We've lost the sense of humor that we've had.
Absolutely.
And because of, my mentor, I can pretty much say what I want. If you don't get it, I'm sorry, but it doesn't come from a place of negativity, Oh, Richard would have loved this stuff, man. Oh God, I could just imagine the things that he'd say now. Oh,
we could go on for hours and hours. You're such an interesting guy. You've had such incredible experiences. Is there anything else that you want to share with us before we leave? Because it's, we've been at this for quite a while. I'm not stopping the ship.
Oh no, I'm fine as well. I can keep going. Doesn't matter. Listen, it's a pleasure to talk about people that I worked with, as opposed to just what happens to me most of the time is talk about A Christmas Story. Not that that's a bad thing, but to me, it's much more enjoyable to talk about Gleason and Pryor and Ned Beatty and Teresa Ganzel and,
So tell me about The Christmas Story.
Holy Christ. It was a movie that nobody wanted to make except Bob Clark and Gene Shepard. And from the beginnings of it, MGM didn't want to make it, but Bob wanted to make it, and Bob did this other little movie called Porky's that made over $100 million, and they wanted him to do Porky's 2, and he goes, absolutely, right after I do the film I want to do called A Christmas Story. So he basically blackmailed them into doing this film. They didn't want to give him the full budget. He gave back his directing fee, producing fee. He was working for nothing.
Wow.
To put the money back into the film for a piece of the movie. Then we make the movie. MGM doesn't even want to release the movie. They're going to put it on the shelf. They're going to put it on VHS. Bob Clark called, I guess, Darren McGavin. He spoke, and they started putting money together to buy the film from MGM.
Wow.
And finally, MGM said, okay, we'll put the movie out. And then, the whole thing was just, it kept getting blocks everywhere it seemed to go.
So did you enjoy making that movie, and what role did you play?
I played a role called Flick. I had a supporting role. I ended up being there 5.5 weeks, but I worked 6 days in 5.5 weeks. So it's not like I was working 1 day a week. Did I have fun? Yes and no. I had fun with hanging out with Peter, as much as we could, video games, snowball fights, and that kind of stuff. But beside that, the weather conditions were so bad. We were shooting in Canada and Cleveland, and Cleveland, it was 25 degrees, and in Canada it was 24 below zero. There's no fun in that.
No.
Thank God. In Cleveland, we had there was a deli in Higbee Square. That's what they call Higbee Square, downtown Cleveland. that was attached to our hotel. We could get to the deli without going outside. We could just go a back walkway. We played Pac-Man and Frogger. Then when we went to Canada to shoot the school scenes and the tongue and the flagpole and all that, we were at a Howard Johnson's Motor Lodge. And they had Galaga and some other, I think Space Invader, some other video game like that. Thank God. Otherwise, forget it. Video games got us through that movie. But I mean, I had more fun, with Pete, hanging with him, than anybody. I mean, Bob was easy to work with, I mean, the tongue of the flagpole, I mean, I've talked about it 8 gazillion times, but of the other film that I did, Kidco, which was for 20th Century Fox.
Yeah, tell me about that.
I'm in 98% of the film, again, this is just how things happen. I get the film, and they've got a 10-week shooting schedule. We're supposed to finish literally right before Christmas, like the 23rd of December. And the toy is coming out on December 10th. And Columbia had said, we're going to send you here. We're going to fly you here. We got to do promo there, all the things that you do. Gleason and Pryor, we're not going to promote the toy. It's going to be on my back.
Whoa.
I'll be promoting it, which would have been fine. Okay. So 2 things happen at the same time. I'll go with the quicker one first. A movie called Annie came out that Columbia had. Okay. And Eileen Quinn, who is a dear friend, loved this girl to death. I've known her since she did Annie on Broadway. That's how long I've known Eileen. A dear friend, love her to death. The movie flopped. Okay. They flew her all over the globe. Not even the country of the United States. I mean the globe. Columbia spent millions promoting it with her. It didn't work. What are they going to do for the toy? They're going to send this kid around. They just did it with Eileen. It didn't work. And at that time, Coca-Cola bought Columbia Pictures.
Whoa.
So they didn't want to spend more money. Hey, if Gleason and Pryor can't sell this movie, the kid ain't going to help. Now, of course, we don't know that yet. Okay. So we get to Tucson to shoot Kidco. And I tell we're having the first meeting and read through. Okay, we do all that. And I asked the 2 producers and the director, can I talk to you for a minute? Now, remember, I've done 1 movie. I did the toy at this point, but I'd done 4 months with Gleason and Pryor. So I felt pretty good, to say the least. Okay. No, I mean, I studied the script. I got everybody's lines. I know exactly what I'm doing. Here we go. So they have the meeting. Okay, fine. Everybody leaves. So it's me. Oh my God. Frank Yablans and David Niven Jr. Now, these 2 guys between them got 60 years of experience. Ron Maxwell is our director. Okay, fine. And the first AD, me and my dad. And I said, listen, guys, we got to work, and we got to work fast. I got to be out of here December 10th. The toy is opening in the theaters. They're telling me I got to do promo, whatever. But we're scheduled till the 23rd of December. Okay. So Frank Yablans looks at me and he goes, get the F out of here. Throws me out of the room to go across the hall to where the video games were. Talks to my dad. He says, listen, we can't do this. Doesn't happen this way. Films don't get made faster. They get made slower. That's just how this goes. My father turns around. He says, listen, you don't know my kid. He's Secretariat. He's Godzilla. Just get on his back. He's going to ride you to the finish line. And they're like, but it just doesn't happen. My dad's like, you're going to have to go with him. I'm telling you, you don't know my kid. And they're like, oh my God. Cause they're figuring the parent's going to say, no, my kid, don't worry. It'll be fine. And whatever needs to be. No. My father went the other way completely. He backed me. All right. So they call me back in the room. I come, I sit down. It's like sitting in Vegas at the poker table. They're calling my bluff now. Okay, Scotty. So you want to be done by December 10th. What do you want to do first? 14-year-old kid comes out with, listen, I looked at the shooting schedule. Why are we shooting at the house here and the house here? Why don't we just combine everything? We're shooting over at the school here. We get to school here. Let's do. They didn't know what to say. They go, okay. So the two producers, so David Niven Jr. and Frankie Blondes, walk out of the room. They take my dad goes with them, and Alan, the first AD, and Marty, the second AD. Alan? Oh, Jesus. I think Alan was the first AD. So Marty lived. It's just me and the first AD. And we redid the shooting schedule that night.
Wow.
I mean, literally, the only day that we let be was the first day of shooting. After that, locations were moving all over the place.
Wow.
Now, I'm getting on the set, 6:30 in the morning. I'm in here, let's go, bang it out. Let's go. I'm killing it. I mean, you know, we were 8-10 days in, and we were 3-4 days ahead already. I mean, we're just going. Ron Maxwell and I are working together. Great. Terrific. No problem. There was a courtroom scene that they had expected to go a day and a half or 2 days. I'm not kidding you. We knocked it out before lunch.
Wow.
I mean, you know, there's one scene I'm doing this long, you know, nonsense, and I'm going back and forth, the camera's following me. Well, how do you make this work? You know, so you think on your feet, which is what I did. I tell the transportation coordinator, what time's my call time tomorrow? 7. Okay, no, you're picking me up at 6:30. Then I tell the cameraman, make sure you're on the set by 7. I got to see you. I get there, I grab my bagel, I grab my coffee, I grab the cameraman, we go to the set. The dolly track hasn't been laid down. Nothing's been laid down. And I said, listen, let's just do this for my pacing. You know, I got this long diatribe. Here we go. You know, just do it. So he gets my pacing down. They lay the track down. He and I did it a couple of times. Okay, fine. So by 8 o'clock, when everybody else is ready to go and they're on the set, we're good. We got it all worked out. And, you know, so Ron's like, okay, you know, we got plenty of time to do this. Don't worry. We're going to rehearse for a while. I said, we don't have to. I said, we worked it out already. We got it done. Let's go. And he's looking at me, and we're shooting 35. We're not shooting video. You know, if I screw this up, it's going to cost the company a lot of money. I guess we'll shoot the rehearsal. Let's see what happens. Okay, let's go. We shoot the rehearsal, and he's going, okay, let's do 3 or 4 more just for coverage and protection. And we're, you know, so I took 4 hours and made it into 12 minutes. So this is what I did on this film, literally. Okay. I was working every day, 10, 12, 14, 16-hour days. Didn't matter. We got to get it done. And we ended up wrapping on December 10th, the day I said, we're going to wrap.
Wow.
And Frankie Blondes, it was the pettiness. Here, people are going to love this nonsense. This is the pettiness of movie making. My dad came down a couple times. We had a family friend who was like an uncle to me that's on the set with me, okay? So it's about a week before, and they're handing out the jackets, the movie jackets. And it's a members-only jacket, you know, with Kidco on it. Okay, fine. What is it, $35, $50, whatever. They're giving out the jackets. Okay. My dad, you know, he had come down for the last, actually about a week before. The last week, my dad had come down. They don't have a jacket for my dad because he's not on the set every day. But realistically, he is, because when I'm working overtime, I'm supposed to call my dad, get permission, and my dad says it's okay. So he's really a part of the production, even though he's not there. Now, of course, none of that shit happened. I handled my own stuff at this point. I went in a trailer, had myself a bottle of water, came out. Oh, yeah, Dad said, we're doing overtime. No problem. Didn't matter. So my dad asked for a jacket. You know, can I get a jacket? And the PA goes, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Schwartz. You weren't here every day. You weren't really a daily part of this production. It's a $50 jacket, man. What are you, nuts? So, of course, then mysteriously a jacket shows up, you know, because somebody said something and whatever and all. Okay, fine. So then we get to the literally, it's Thursday. We're finishing shoot. We got one more day to go, and that's it. The production, the publicist comes over with 2 books of photos, behind the scenes photos. Okay. And says, listen, you know, we know you're probably going to want some photos from the film. We printed one out. Tell us what you want. You know, we'll print them up. Okay, fine. So I picked out like 50 different photos that I wanted. Now, We are 12, 13 days ahead of schedule. On movie making, that's a lot of money. You know, that's probably close to $1 million, something in that vicinity. Okay. I picked out the 50 pictures. Okay, fine. Later in the afternoon, the publicist comes over and he kind of hands my dad a piece of paper. You know, here you go. Oh, what's this? Oh, well, you wanted the 50 prints and we charge $12 a photo and it's $600. Huh? Black and white photos. They want to charge like $12 a piece for. My father's like, oh, that's whatever. I said, I got this. So I walked over to Frank Yablon's. And I said, Frank, have I done a good job for you? He's like, is that actually a question? You know, I said, listen, Pete came over with the book of photos. I picked out like 50 photos that they're of me, you know. He wants to charge me $600 for photos. He goes, no, I'll fix that. Don't worry about it. I'll fix that. So, of course, the next thing happens is, you know, the publicist comes back over and he goes, hey, you know, yeah, Frank said, we'll just send them out to you next Monday. You'll have them, whatever. And okay, fine, thanks. This is movie making.
Show business.
Show business. But Kidco is the film that, from a performance-wise, from contribution-wise, from what I did-wise, that's the film that I'm most proud of, because I literally had no business grabbing the reins of a film and driving the truck. Realistically, I had no business doing that, but I did it because I thought Columbia was going to be sending me all over the place for publicity and all that shit. That's not what happened. You know, then after the Monday, right afterwards, you know, we called Columbia and they said, listen, you know, no, Coke bought us out and they're just not going to spend any money and whatever. And then I wasted, oh God, 15, 20,000 on a publicist from New York. Her name's in my book. I mean, it was great. You know, she got me on AM Boston so I could make spaghetti. You know, she got me a lot of press clippings from all over the country, from all different things. Oh, that's great. Thanks. I got press clippings. Okay. You know, the only good thing was the show with the show with Joe Namath. That was the only real thing that she did for me. You know,
can people find the movie?
Yeah, it's on DVD. Yeah. Can
they find it on Amazon or?
I don't know. You'd have to look. I don't have any of those.
Okay.
You know, the subscription things. None of them. I know it's on DVD. I mean, Disney just bought 20th, so now it's become part of the Disney library. But I know that they have it on DVD.
Okay, great. So listen, Scotty, this has been great. Couldn't have asked for more. All this wonderful information. I really appreciate you being with me this time and sharing, you know, these stories that no one's going to hear anyplace else. And that's what I really love. Thank you.
It was fun. Had a good time, Bruce. We'll do it again sometime.
I think that would be a great idea. Scott Schwartz, thank you again for being on the show. You're listening and watching, not just listening, you're watching the 80s golden age of comedy. We'll see you again. Bye-bye, everybody. Now, a quick word from one of our sponsors. I've been told by a lot of the comedians I knew and represented during the 80s, I looked the same as I did 40 years ago. And come to think of it, I still have my thick brown hair and just a few wrinkles. But most importantly for me, by simply applying the completely safe human growth hormone homeopathic gel on my skin just 2 times a day, the depression and panic attacks I suffered from years ago were gone in just 2 weeks. And then I started deep sleeping for many hours at night. You know, you can have the gel work for you too. To find out more, contact me at bruce@brucestarproductions.com.